We talked earlier about Amazon and how much trouble they're in right now. Google apparently is in a similar boat. We had just this week dozens of state attorneys general suing Google on antitrust grounds. You can reach me online, just me, M-E, at craigpeterson.com, or what most people do is they just hit reply to my newsletter. Hopefully you're on my newsletter, right? That it goes out every week. If you're on that newsletter, you can just hit reply and ask me questions, any questions you want. I'm more than glad to answer them. I know most of you guys, you're not business people. I am still glad to answer your questions for you, keep you on the right track. The whole idea here is to keep you guys safer. And if you're a business person, what the heck, maybe I can help you out as well. Well, here is a problem, and it's a very big problem. We have these absolutely huge companies that are using their market position in order to really control the entire market. Now, it's a very big problem because you have companies that are sitting on billions of dollars in cash who can and do keep their competition out of the market. Now, one of the ways to keep them out, and I've mentioned this before, Microsoft has done this multiple times, has lost lawsuits about it, particularly over in Europe, but they find somebody who might be a competitor and they basically squeeze them out of the market, even though they're not necessarily even a direct competitor. One of the things Facebook does is they buy companies for 10, 100 times sometimes more than they're actually worth. Would you take $50 million for your company that's worth $50 million? You might not. Would you take $500 million for the company? How about $1 billion? That's where it starts becoming very questionable about what they're doing. One of the things that Google is allegedly doing right now is preemptively squashing competing app stores. When you look at Google and the Google Android ecosystem, who sells the most Android devices out there, right? The high-end devices, the number one seller of Android phones is, of course, Samsung. And Samsung started to put an app store. So you could buy Samsung apps. Now, Apple and Google both charge about the same rates. As a general rule, it's 30% for these bigger companies that they have to pay the App Store. Okay, I'm okay with that. They both spent the time to build the platform, to monitor it, to try and keep the App Store clean. That's definitely worth something. But what if Samsung came along and said, okay, we're only going to charge 10% royalties in our app store, and the apps will run on all of our Samsung Android phones. So it's still using the Google operating system. It's still Android. It will probably run on other than Samsung phones as well. That's the whole nature of Java. But that hasn't happened. And why hasn't it happened? These state attorneys general are saying that what has happened is the Samsung Galaxy Store got squashed by Google so it could maintain its monopoly on Android app distribution. So it says that Google engaged in a bunch of different anti-competitive practices. They offered large app developers profit-sharing agreement in exchange for exclusivity. Okay, I can see that. The Apple iPhone came out, do you remember this? Exclusively on ATN T's network. Is that a problem? They're saying also that Google created unnecessary hurdles for what's called sideloading. So sideloading is where you might go to another app store in order to install something, or maybe it's something that you want to put on yourself. It's not fully approved by the Google Play Store. So that's the basics of what the sideloading is all about. So it's saying that they made that even harder. Okay, from Google's standpoint, do we really want to allow anything to run on our phones? And here's the question. Here's why. right? What do I do for a living? Cybersecurity. What is one of the things you have to do for cybersecurity? You've got to put in special routers, special firewalls, and software on servers and computers. Whoever touches a computer last owns the next problem. That's been my mantra forever. So if we installed some software on a computer, or we had the customer install some software on a computer, and there's a problem, who are they going to call? They're going to call me, right? Because I was the last one to touch their computer. And at that point now I have to show, okay, it wasn't me, it was this other piece of software. QuickBooks is a piece of junk. You know what? Whatever it is, I'm going to have to justify it. And frankly, I'm probably going to have to fix it. So Google is saying, we don't want all of these app stores that might have apps that are not secure, apps that crash, apps that might cause problems with the Android ecosystem. I think that's perfectly legitimate. Apparently, the state attorneys general don't think it is. And here's the last one. This is a biggie. Attempting to buy off Samsung to limit competition from the Samsung Galaxy App Store. Now, Google's saying that this lawsuit is meritless, and I can see a whole bunch of legitimate arguments on their part. They also said, quote, and this is an article from Ars Technica, it's strange that a group of state attorneys general chose to file a lawsuit attacking a system that provides more openness and choice than the others. In other words, they're taking a jab at Apple there, because Apple is very closed for the reasons I just cited here, that Google, I'm sure, is going to argue as to why they are closed, okay? Apparently, the state attorneys general are saying, quote, Google promised repeatedly that Android would be the basis for an open ecosystem in which industry participants could freely compete. Google has not kept its word. Instead, Google has taken steps to close the ecosystem from competition and insert itself as the middleman between app developers and consumers. Okay, so can you see that? They're also complaining this 30% commission, it's a monopoly rent that unfairly burdens consumers and developers. Okay, well, you could argue that. I don't fall for that one personally. Now, the buy-off is where I think that there's a lot of teeth in this particular lawsuit, because they're saying that we've got the commission rate argument, right? We've got that it's not as open as you said it would be. But these attorneys general have spent a lot of time dissecting Google's alleged efforts to keep competing app stores at bay. And they said Google was willing to offer Samsung myriad benefits and concessions in order to prevent Samsung's Galaxy Store from being built out. Again, is that a huge problem? If you've got a big customer or potential partner coming to you and saying, okay, I want a few concessions here. I'm not going to pay 30%, or I want to have some of my developers in-house with your people so that they can short circuit some of the problems that always develop. Those are common in the business period when it comes to software development. Right? Businesses have, well, we'll use Apple again as an example, Jamf, which is a really great set of software to help manage your devices, JMPF. You might want to check it out. So Jamf had their engineers camp out at Apple's headquarters, apparently for months, while they were working on some of their software for the next release of Apple's iOS and macOS. Is that unfair? Yeah, in a way it is, right? Because here I am, little Mr. Small Developer, and I'm not gaining access to Apple's top engineers and able to send mine out there to live with Apple engineers and ask questions and help them debug my software. But it happens every day. Make sense? So it says, though the Galaxy Store was not nearly as popular as the Play Store, Google feared that Samsung would develop into a strong competitor, especially since the company sells a majority of high-end Android phones in the US. Ars Technica says Google was particularly concerned that Samsung would get an exclusive game for the store to attract more users, which Samsung did do in 2018 when it partnered with Epic to launch Fortnite exclusively on the Galaxy Store. And that one move, that one game, that one app cost Google millions of dollars in revenue. So we'll see what happens here. They make other claims in there. Apparently, it even Google offered to white label the Play Stores, the Galaxy Store, so that Samsung could maintain its branding. All kinds of negotiations. The types of things I've seen before, the types of things that are not particularly uncommon. But the European Commission is also going after them with an antitrust investigation. They've done that a few years ago with this is a problem. These companies are huge, and we don't let them fail. Look at what happened. GM and Chrysler both got bailouts from the federal government. Chrysler got bailouts twice. The free market, you never would have had that happen. The best part of Chrysler would still exist, and those weak parts would have been gone. That's what bankruptcy law is all about. GM, the same thing. The best parts of GM would have remained. We would have probably had better cars today than we have if GM had been allowed to go bankrupt. And yeah, it's going to hurt people, but guess what? It's hurting people right now from the other side. And when I see this happening as well at Google and Amazon, of course, they haven't gone bankrupt, but they both, along with Facebook and a few others, they're both huge, and they control so much of the market. So what's the best way forward? What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. Just drop me an email, me@craigpeterson.com. What is the solution to this? Hey, make sure you get my newsletter. We got all of this information. Of course, a whole lot more comes out every week. Maybe semi-weekly here fairly soon. We'll see how it goes. But go to craigpeterson.com/subscribe. You'll get my free newsletter, and you'll keep up to date on what you need to do to keep yourself safe. craigpeterson.com.